Hello, everyone, and welcome to October 3rd regular Legislative Council meeting of the Town of Vegreville. I'll call the meeting to order at 3:04. First up, I'll be looking for a motion for the adoption of the agenda. Councillor Lemke. Any additions or deletions to the agenda? Seeing none, all those in favor, carried. Next is adoption of the minutes. I'll be looking for a motion. Councillor Bullock makes the motion. Any errors or omissions within those minutes? Seeing no hands, all those in favor, carried. So we have no delegations today. So we're going to start with Jameson Brown.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. It's a hard transition right into me here, so bear with me. This memo has to do with the signing of a memorandum of understanding, herein referred to as an MOU or the MOU between the Village of Innisfree, the Village of Manville, the County of Minburn, and the Town of Vegreville with respect to the development and management of a Regional Economic Development Committee, now formally branded as the Crossroads Economic Development Alliance. The background on this matter: in March of 2023, County of Minburn, Village of Innisfree, the Village of Manville, and the Town of Vegreville are successful in a joint application of the Alberta Communities Partnership Grant to fund the development of a regional economic development framework. In June, Outlook Market Research and Consulting was awarded the contract to create the above-referenced framework. In August, representatives from the county, the villages, and the town met with Outlook Market Research to discuss course of action and next steps. Committee governance, including the appointment of elected officials from each municipality as voting members, and the signing of an MOU is discussed. And then in September, Mayor Tim McPhee was appointed as the Town of Vegreville's committee representative. Future committee meeting dates have yet to be determined, but in the weeks ahead, in accordance with the attached MOU, the Crossroads Economic Development Alliance will be empowered to make decisions regarding the hiring and management of a regional economic development consultant, herein referred to as the EDC, and the projects that the EDC undertakes. Financial implications: the ACP grant provides $187,000 to the Crossroads Initiative. The Regional Economic Development Framework is broken into 4 areas, all which will be administered by Outlook Market Research and Consulting: Business Retention Expansion Project and the Regional Economic Development Committee Setup Project, Economic Development Consultant Contract, EDC Travel and Communication Costs, and Economic Development Project, which is to be determined. Although unlikely, any additional funding beyond the Regional Economic Development Framework budget for ancillary costs required by Crossroads would first require unanimous approval from the committee's voting members / elected representatives prior to requesting said funds from their respective councils. Our options today: have Mayor Tim McPhee, as the committee's appointed representative, sign the MOU or request changes to the MOU prior to signing. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. So I've gone through the MOU here, and looks pretty straightforward. Is there any recommendations that you would make?
My recommendation would be to forge ahead and sign. It's a tremendous opportunity to work in partnership with our regional neighbors. The name Crossroads comes from our sharing of some key transportation networks, including Highway 16 and 36 in this region. Again, because of this grant, right now all costs are covered by the ACP grant. So to me, it's a phenomenal opportunity to work collaboratively.
Yeah, for sure. And anything in the area is always going to be good for us. So does anybody have anything against going ahead and signing this MOU? I don't think we need a motion of council because we've already approved to be a part of the grant application moving forward. Is there any? Go ahead, Councillor Rudick.
I do have a few questions. I think it's a great idea. I do like the name, and if you needed a song, I know somebody who wrote a song called Crossroads. So I guess my question would be, the opportunity to be able to work regionally, I think, is always great, particularly when there are a lot of synergies between the different municipalities that are represented here. The one thing that I wondered is, will there be a resolution mechanism when there are potentially instances where there will be competing interests, because working together is not always easy. And for example, the mechanism in place for being looking for additional money requires unanimous consent. And I'm wondering, there are no weighted seats, there's no weighted decision making. It has to be all four parties and then the non-voting seat of hub. So I'm just wondering, like the Edmonton Metro Regional Board and the Calgary Metro Regional Board, for example, have been very successful, but they've also had some real challenges, just listening to some of the smaller members trying to be able to make their voices heard, or having the competing interests between one another. Is there going to be a decision-making capacity for being able to weight decisions? Do you know that?
From what I understand, I guess I should probably preface this by saying that there are essentially 5 voting members, and then anybody who's taking part as an advisory member, such as myself or Davin Jagalik representing the county, are non-voting. The 4 voting members would be each representing their specific municipalities, and then as well as Bob Bisbalco, the executive director of Alberta Hub. In order for any action to take part, it has to be essentially a unanimous decision. So if, for instance, an action item comes to the table and you don't have that unanimous support, it would essentially die on the floor.
So then my subsequent question then would be, it would be really important to figure out beforehand. There are a couple of conflicting words in the governance section in the MOU on page 3. Just the numbers of voting and non-voting members. I just would maybe clarify, because there's just some conflicting wording there. To maybe talk about the measurable impact, like determining which decisions are set aside and what we're looking for as a municipality as part of a larger decision-making body like this. The mayor just said as well that this is a great opportunity, and you said so yourself. Working together is always more powerful, and we know that when we do better as a region, that'll be better for everybody. But I guess it would be important for us to each determine as voting members what we need to get out of this. And economic development is always a long game, so I just hope that we'll be able to have a starting point and be able to work forward from there, because we've worked very hard over the last number of years to make sure that we provide regional credibility to anything that we're putting forward into the larger economic development world. So,
And I do believe that the Outlook market research and consulting will probably cover that in the first couple meetings, like what interest or what does everybody, municipality, want to take away from this? I know what you're talking about Edmonton and Calgary Capital Regional Boards. It got to a point where they were bogged down until they gave themselves veto power. And that's exactly how they run that now. It's sort of like the UN.
well, it's tricky. Like, I mean, I've talked to the mayor of Sturgeon County, for example, and it's not necessarily fair that that they can hold up a development that everybody else is in favor of, or vice versa. But I understand that there also needs to be a mechanism to be able to weight those conversations in a way that's productive, because the whole reason to do this grant and do this work is to get things done. So I guess I would want us to be very clear about what our goal is entering into this partnership, because I think it's exciting and it can be productive. We just have to be very clear what we want to get out of it.
And again, when we decided that we were going to go ahead and support this grant application, we know how much work we're doing on our own. But again, like we said, anything in the region is always a benefit for us. So that'll be probably in the first couple of meetings will be covered. Hopefully, the consultant will bring this up, what each municipality wants out of it. And I don't think that we need to bring in a veto or any weighted system to this. I mean, I don't think that's fair to anybody else. So,
No, I get that. I just feel like having those conversations first prevents problems later. And I'm excited to see what will happen with this. So looking forward to it.
and as the first member of the town on this board, as we move forward, I'll be bringing updates, and again, I will probably take what our thoughts are to this committee about what we feel would be positive outcomes for the town of Vegreville too. Go ahead, Councillor Barry.
Thank you, Your Worship. Following up with Councillor Rudick, I do believe that I would want to have it clarified when it says that there's 5 voting members, but they're unanimous between the 4 voting parties to pass. Does that mean the unanimous part is only between the villages, the county, and the town?
You know what? That's it wasn't until Councillor Rudick brought that to my attention, because I saw 5 voting members and then 2 non-voting members on page 3. Which
But I do understand that it could be legitimately the way it's worded.
Right.
If just the 4 municipalities have to be unanimous. If the dissenting vote was hub, it wouldn't matter, is what I'm asking.
That's correct. And you know what? I'm going to have to defer this until this committee meets for the first time.
And this will be a question raised, because when I looked at this, what I took it was, is that, you know, there wasn't a black square beside the resource advisory representee. So I thought that Alberta Hub would be weighing in on with the voting on this, so.
Yes, and then in the next, section of that, it says votes must, must be unanimous between the 4 voting parties to pass. So, potentially, Your Worship, with your permission, maybe I will withdraw my recommendation. I will ask for clarification from Market Outlook, because I had misread that, because I can see why that would be confusing.
I can understand that it could be that
Yes.
way, that there could be a dissenting vote so long as it wasn't one of the 4 municipalities.
And that could potentially be it, but I would like clarification now that we're all having this conversation. So, Your Worship, with your permission, I will seek clarification on this matter, and with council's permission, if we're happy with the clarification, I can, send some correspondence to everybody, and we can forge ahead without needing to do so in a formal setting of the signing of this document.
Yeah, well. So do we know when the first meeting will be held? Have we talked to the consultant, or?
Not as of yet, no. I think we were waiting on the official signing of the MOU just in case somebody said, I'm out of here. Maybe one of the parties wouldn't want to be involved. That hasn't been the case thus far, but once these are all signed by all municipalities involved, I believe the plan is to get to work right away.
So basically, the way I read it is with everything with the black square had a vote. So the other one wasn't filled in, but yeah, if you can just confirm that.
I will indeed.
And it shouldn't take much, one conversation with the consultant, and we'll get this figured out, get it back to us, and then if everybody agrees, we'll go ahead and we'll sign this MOU, and we won't be the ones holding it up. Was there anything else in that you?
No, not at all. And honestly, it's just a clarification, because the first bullet point talks about 5 voting members, and the next paragraph says 4. So it's just a wording. And actually, that part is immaterial, but it needs to be consistent. And I think regardless, that's not going to change our participation. We're in support of that.
And so, I don't know when the first scheduled meeting is, but I'd like to, take our thoughts to this meeting too, about what we would feel would be a positive outcome for the town of Vegreville. So, again, like, I'm going in there not knowing which direction this consultant wants to take this. I know how much time and effort and money that we put into economic development. But again, anytime that we have a chance to, to help this region, it helps us. That's the way I look at it, so. I mean, if we were negotiating with somebody and somebody in this new board tried to steal them away from us, I think I'd have a problem. There'd be a little more black dots on who would be voting, but.
Steal who away?
Well, a potential investor.
Oh.
And that's precisely, I think there needs to be those kind of conversations as part of the framework, because that happens all the time.
Yeah.
And, yeah, we just want to make sure that we're actually working together, not against it.
I will make that point very clear.
Gently.
Yeah, I know. I'll have my kid gloves on, but again, I know that I've talked to some councillors in some of the other municipalities, and just having the opportunity to be involved in economic development where they don't have that right now. They don't have the resources, and so it's going to be positive. Okay, so we'll wait till Jameson gets a little bit of clarification on that one point there on page 3, and then we'll move forward. Okay, thank you very much, Jameson. Next up, Director Lefebvre. Yep.
Vegreville Town Council received some correspondence from Patricia Toma. My name is Patricia Toma. I live with my husband at Horizon Village. We are situated in the corner of 49th Street and 47th Avenue. 47th Avenue goes west towards the water park and goes east towards the arena. If one looks eastward, you can see a line right down the middle of the road where at some point in the past, a layer of paving was put on the road on the Horizon Village side, and on the other half of the road did not get any paving at all, almost as if they ran out of product and never did come back to finish the job. Consequently, the half of the road that did not get the paving has deteriorated to the point that the pavement is broken up in several places along the whole street. This summer, the road at the stop sign at the corner of 49th Street and 47th Avenue has broken up to the point that there is holes and broken up paving, which vehicles are scattering as they stop and start going again. I know that road maintenance and repair is done for 2023, but I'm hoping this road might be put on the priority list for repaving, hopefully next year. Thank you for your consideration of this request. Kind regards, Patricia Toma.
So what can you tell us about that, Director Lefebvre? I'm sure we didn't pave half once on the south side of a road. Was a patch that was put in there?
No, she's right. It was paved on half of the road when Horizon Village was built and the water services had gone in.
Oh, yeah.
They destroyed only, or disturbed half of the road, so they elected to pave half the road and leave the other half coal mix. It was, the timing is something, because our budget meeting tomorrow, you'll see that every year we do one street locally and get it paved and set, and this is that street, so.
Oh.
I just kind of smiled when I read, well, that's pretty good timing, and it'll be in your presentation tomorrow, so. So yes, it's on the list for next year for consideration.
So then, really, this is out of the hands of your department, and it's on council to answer this letter.
You are, because it's pending budget.
Okay, pressure's on. Well, thank you, Patricia, for that, and I remember that now, how that got done, so. Okay, thank you very much. Next up, Director Johnston, you don't have anything for us today? Oh, so we'll see you tomorrow at budget. Okay. Okay, CAO Ling.
Okay, the topic of this memo is the draft records management and retention bylaw. The records management bylaw has not been reviewed since 2007. The current bylaw deems that records will be retained or destroyed in accordance with Schedule A, which refers to the provincial document Retention and Scheduling of Municipal Records. The newly drafted records management and retention bylaw focuses on documents that are specific to our organization by listing the record retention schedules by department. The new bylaw also clearly defines the difference between official records and transitory records, who is responsible for record management, and how effective retention and destruction of records will be accomplished. If passed, this bylaw will repeal bylaw number 14-2007, Records Management Bylaw. This draft bylaw is being introduced for review purposes and will be presented to Council for discussion at the next legislative meeting on October 17th, 2003. So the options are to review the draft bylaw for discussion on October 17th Legislative Committee meeting, or to forego the review of the draft bylaw and retain the current bylaw of 14-2007.
Well, thank you very much. Any comments? Start with Councillor Bullock.
Yeah, thanks for doing all that work and going through all this. I went through it quickly last night and a little bit this morning. I'd definitely like to see it come up and go through it again. I'd like to have the former or the old bylaw with it, with some of the differences there as well. So I'd like to see some of that. Question I had was also on, just a moment, please. for example, under general organization, when you, like 1.2.2, this is unsuccessful bids and tenders, C+3, is the +3 years? Is that what it means? Just for example, retention? Sorry, that's page 6 of 12. I'm just using it as an example.
Yes, so when you get to the actual record retention schedule, the C is the current year.
Current year.
And then if it's a +3, so you'd keep it for the current year and then an additional 3 years. So in the so it's a total of 4 years. So in the 5th year, it becomes a record that is up for destruction.
Okay, that's my question. Thanks.
So what are the biggest changes we want to make to this bylaw?
The biggest changes in here is that our older bylaw, I'll send it out via email so you guys can take a look at it. It actually relies very heavily on the provincial, like the Schedule A, to set out all the parameters and guidelines. That schedule changes periodically. And if our departments aren't looking at the most current one, they're looking at records or retention policies that could be 10 years old. There has been quite a substantial amount of change now with the ability to digitize records and stuff like that. So, but it's not only the retention piece, it's the ensuring that every department is responsible for their own records as well, and that it's not just the, it doesn't fall onto administration just because we have the vault and the storage here, that we're the ones that are storing these records, or we're the ones that are gonna go through their files and make sure they're not keeping transitory records for longer than needs to be. Essentially, we pay to heat records if they're in storage, so we want to make sure that we are not, we're not overcrowding our storage, which becomes potentially a fire hazard, but we don't need to hang on to a whole bunch of records for forever just because we can. So the goal is to get them saving their records properly. And when we get into budget, you'll see a new piece to this when it comes to FOIP training as well.
So the changes that we're trying to implement here, changes that have been coming to Municipal Affairs Office to us
Yes.
regarding guidelines on record keeping and stuff.
Yes,
So the plan is to update to where the version is today, and then make sure each department looks after their own and handles in charge of their own records.
yes, that's correct. Like, there are records that have to come to administration, contracts, and anything that binds the town, those have to be stored here. But there's a lot of records that the departments keep on their own, and they need guidelines on to how long they need to keep them, when they can destroy them, and which ones they cannot destroy either.
Right, Councillor Riddick?
Thank you for clarifying that. My two questions were the training implications, and you've just sort of touched on that, because I can't imagine that this doesn't come without a little bit of an update for all of our staff to be able to understand the implications of keeping too long or not keeping long enough can have some far-reaching implications. So I'm glad to hear that there will be some updating of the information so people understand. And I guess the other part that's important here too is knowing whose responsibility it is in various departments, because I'm assuming that might change with job description, or by appointment of the CAO, you would be determining who would be responsible for maintaining that, because ultimately, I mean, there's a good definition about what to keep and when. And I guess my question would be, who decides that and when? I mean, it all comes back up to the CAO, but when you delegate that responsibility to each department, there's a big implication. So those are just my two.
Yeah, the goal is to start from the ground up with our record retention, and make sure that everybody who deals with records understands how they should be filed, how they should be stored, and for how long. And ultimately, then we can get to a point where when we start to digitize and keep electronic, start keeping most of our records electronic. We don't have we're not going through the masses during that project that there's cleaned up before.
But most of the changes to this bylaw are actually changes that were brought forth by municipal affairs.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, any other questions? If you do, phone Rick McIver, the Minister of Municipal Affairs. Okay, thank you very much. Now we come to round table. What have you been hearing lately? Councilor Worla.
Okay. Well, I have two issues. One I was going to ask to do separate originally, but since Councillor Curtis wasn't here today, it's on the FCSS strat plan. So I'll bring that one second. The other one, I did have a phone call, and I know I've talked about this specific issue multiple times, actually, and it's one you would have all received the reply email. And just, had somebody reach out to me again. I'm very thankful when people see things on social media that aren't accurate, or that they question when they do reach out to either council or obviously to administration, who would give them the automatic answer. We're happy to forward it to the right departments, but I would really encourage everybody not to necessarily take things from social media as the answer going forward. But the questions that came to me were around business licenses and, you know, how much involvement the town and or council has in providing business licenses, if we have specific things that are not allowed within the town. So just basically, thank you, Dale, for the, Director Lefebvre, for the information back. But just to reiterate, I did speak with that person who reached out to me, but to anybody that is viewing, it is extremely limited what the council themselves would see on business licenses. That would go through administration, but even there, they're not making decisions on the business themselves. They're making decisions when they give a business license on whether it's in the proper zone, whether, you know, it falls within the criteria to get that license. So there is a misconception out there that the town gets to decide. If we were talking about meat shops, for example, and there was 40 that applied, whether we say yes or no, that's not the case. We just determine whether that meat shop is in the right area. Also, I was asked a question about specific items that there was a comment made that there are certain types of businesses currently that are just completely not allowed within the town, and that's not really correct as long as they would fall in the right zoning. Obviously, adult businesses, meaning intoxicant sales, have a certain area that they can be in. Other businesses that might fall within an adult realm actually could be retail, but we don't have a specific bylaws or policies that say this type of business is not allowed. So hopefully that answers that. And also, we do have all this information online, or reach out to admin, and Dale's department can obviously answer it very quickly. But in general, we're not in the business of telling people, picking winners and losers of which business is coming in, just making sure that they're in the right area. So that was that one. Then the other thing I just wanted to bring forward was a little bit about FCSS. And the reason I want to bring it to the Ledge meeting is just as an opportunity for us to discuss a little bit further. I did send today, so that everyone has a chance to go through it, just the copy of the FCSS's strat plan to all the council. But what I kind of wanted to go over was a little bit of what Councillor Curtis and I had brought before, which is that in 2023, the FCSS has gone ahead and adopted the spectrum that they make all their decisions on programming on. So they break it into 4 areas, early, and it's 2 main categories of early prevention and later prevention. And then there's 2 categories within each, which is kind of starting us to explain what part of it, like number 1 would be in early prevention would be before a problem starts. So the scale that they have provided is what they're applying when making decisions on all programming. They've even gone back in, and it's actually a very useful tool when you're at the meetings, as they talk about any program, even a summer program. They go through and put the numbers that it would actually fall in, so that you actually see, if we continue for this programming, which numbers is it hitting, where is it falling in the stages. It's actually going to be a good tool for them moving forward, because we know our FCSS wants to provide all things for everyone, but you can only provide so many programs, and this will help them determine whether the items that they're providing are in fact within the scope and scale. The strategic plan that was presented forward obviously came after a number of rounds of conversation and outreach with the board itself, with council and with community members, and then they brought all that together, and I think it was a really valuable exercise in the fact that it did get people thinking differently and realizing that while we'll identify a number of things we may want, when we actually then applied these 4 items to it, you'll find that while we want it, it may not be in the FCSS's spectrum of what they should be doing. And that doesn't mean we may not have some aspect in it, but our aspect might be sharing of information, sharing of volunteer lists, or coordinating people, but often it is not the direct service. So 2 main items came out of it that they basically would have liked us to bring to council. And so one of them, which will be, when you guys have an opportunity, it'll be on page 15, if everybody has a chance to go through. This one here is not something we're looking for any kind of vote. It is where they're seeing categories of housing and homelessness, mental health addictions, transportation, income equality, childcare, and access to service, where they see the role of them. What part they see as being a town role and what part they see as being an FCSS role. So currently, when it comes to that, there's all kinds of stages when we say what is our role, from being direct planners or funders or advocates. So in all of those categories, what came forward is that they feel that advocacy would fall for us in all those categories. Advocating for government change and whatnot would typically, would fall within us. And for direct service, the FCSS typically will only look at things like the volunteer income tax program is a direct service that they would provide, as well as like some of the information facilitating would be direct service. So what I'm hoping is everyone could take a little bit of a look at this one. It's not that we need a motion per se, but if we can look at it maybe and discuss again at the next council meeting, whether there's a consensus that they think that, as we're indicating, that is in fact our role for the town, and to see where the FCSS has identified themselves. So in that document I sent, that's one of the things. If we could just come up with a general consensus that, yeah, we think that's on the right plan, it's going to help them apply these to future projects. So 15 of that plan.
Is that a public document right now?
Right now, it's still in strat plan stage. So it's just coming to us before it moves forward any further. So if everyone can do that, because they want to make sure that they feel that we're all aligned before we move forward to it. And then the other page that when you have an opportunity to look at that I'd like to get everyone to look at is page 19, which will be the very last page of that. And that one there will be a little bit different in that when this all came together, the facilitator had identified 3 recommendations that they felt were very important from what they heard from everybody, but that those 3 recommendations were not actually things that would fall within the FCSS mandate. So the recommendations that they made were coming directed to town, to council and admin. And these ones are going to be part of a bigger discussion. They're not something that we could say yay or nay and vote that we're doing at this point. But maybe if everyone could look at these 3, reach out to me if you want to have more discussion with it. And what we would maybe be looking for is a little bit of a consensus to either say we're not interested at all within those, or we'd be interested in getting more information and then figuring out, because there's no way we can automatically say yes or no to it because we don't know what the scope would be. And again, they were identified as being outside of what an FCSS's realm is, but they identified that in the community there would be a potential need for developing of a comprehensive community and social development strategy as something looking forward, to explore the addition of a potentially a community service leadership role, and also the potential of regional collaboration to deal with some of those more complex issues that maybe fall on the town but should be falling on partners around. So if everyone can just have an opportunity to look at those and then can reach back out. We had some pretty in-depth conversations, and I can try to answer any questions and then put this forward for a future discussion.
You sent that to us today?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
I just looked.
Yeah, just for today.
Okay, I was like,
Yeah. No, I just wanted to introduce
Okay.
this to you guys today and give you an opportunity to go take a look at it and then ask me anything as we go along. And that's all I got.
okay, thank you very much. Councillor Bullock?
Okay, well, as things are going, something that I've been hearing comments on are on the signs coming into town. Good things said, that people are pretty impressed with them and how nice you could actually see reflective at night when you're coming up and you can actually see it, so. And I've seen it a few times myself, driving into town, it kind of hits you right in the face, so that's a good thing. Heard about that. Couple concerns from two neighbors along each other on the south side of town here, concerned about their back alleys. Just talking about like, when are they gonna ever be graded? I'll bring that up to you later, so just on that. And that's about it for now, except I did notice something when I just came here to the meeting. On 59th Avenue between 53rd and 54th Street, the snow fences that are put up seem to be damaged, so I just seen that on the way to the meeting. Yeah, by the playground there, behind Foxview.
Councillor Barry.
Thank you, Your Worship. I haven't had any negative things come to me at all. Been out around the corn maze, and people that are coming into town are definitely enjoying it, and a number of them have been coming here for the last 3 years, and they just have praise for saying that they enjoy coming out here. So I think that's a positive aspect, and it was a bit cooler this weekend, but they still seem to enjoy getting out and just walking around and enjoying the fall. So, and the kids are having lots of fun. So I think that that's the only thing I can see, is that people are still pleased to come out here and visit.
Excellent, thank you. Councillor Riddick.
I had some comments actually from somebody that was on our original sign working group. So he was quite pleased to see that 7 years later that what he'd hoped had happened would happen. And I said, yes, we were trying to go as quickly as we could. And we had a lot of great conversations and some great networking with some of our municipal colleagues at Alberta Muni's conference last week, and some good examples of building projects that have been done using Green Municipal Fund for recreation opportunities, and some very creative projects in Penhold, City of Edmonton, and Legal. So they use 3 different sizes of municipality. And for example, the project in Legal, if they hadn't utilized any, I'm just going to use the word green features in their scoping of their arena project, it would have cost approximately $11 million, and adding some additional features brought it to $14 million, but saved money in the end. So it was a nominal increase, which doesn't seem like a lot of money when you're talking about that many millions, but with big outcomes in the end. So some very creative projects, and Penhold, for example, using their public works building and their fire services, using rainwater and utilizing that in their fire protection services was an interesting concept, and great to be able to see that that's a former Vegreville CAO making that happen there too. I don't know if the mayor wants to reference the meeting that we had this morning with our.
Oh, you go right ahead.
So we had a meeting today with our twin city, Kalamea, bright and early this morning, and they brought all of their administrative force to that meeting. And thank you, Leslie, for being there bright and early to be able to have conversations with them. The mayor and his team said that they're currently not being bombed and in a period of stability, but it's constantly weighing on their minds, obviously. And they're doing things like providing emergency training for their city staff next week, and preparing themselves by purchasing generators and making sure that all their staff is ready for the pending winter, and the concern that, of course, that there will always be a shortage of energy and or resources. And their companies are working, but they're also experiencing a shortage of workers currently for a variety of reasons. They are preparing for the future, and originally our agenda showed talking about industrial park. I thought it was our industrial park, but they are also in the midst of building an industrial park with the intention of being able to see a future where there will be no war, and where they're going to need to be ready to put people back to work and be able to recover, which is great, so that they're focused on the future. At the same time, there's certainly a dark cloud over the things that they do every day, because they did talk as well about wanting to ensure that the number of wounded soldiers need to be supported in their community by having good infrastructure and good rehab services available to them. So a lot of what they talked about for us is trying to figure out what we can exchange with them. They're a considerably larger municipality than we are, at 60,000 approximately, and but in some ways, economic development is still new for them because it's not long ago that they were under communist rule. So, you know, the last time we met with them in this format, they were inviting us to come to their 20th anniversary of independence, and a lot can change. COVID and a war has really changed those conversations that we had with them a few years ago. So we'll look forward to trying to have a conversation about exchanging best practices and governance opportunities for economic development and seeing how we can provide some support with them. I was very proud to be able to reference the good work of our committee here. And actually, you know, doing the quick math, we've got about 100 people that are supported by the committee in the community here. And really what that means for us in Vegreville is, I'm not with Stats Canada, but that means that we've outstripped the provincial growth rate. Alberta is the fastest growing province, 4.5%. We're beating that with the number of folks that we brought into the community. And in speaking with the chair and some of the representatives from that committee, as well as Councillor Lemko, it's really been a shot in the arm for everybody to be a part of that in terms of the revitalization of local churches and volunteer groups, to be able to have some new people to be able to reinvigorate. We didn't have an opportunity in that meeting to say, but I think the fundraising efforts are over $85,000, which is incredible for a community of our size to be able to fundraise that kind of money. So anyways, I look forward to having future conversations with them, and some, we're going to be forming a working group and figure out how we can share some investment attraction, share some best practices, and see where they're going and where we can go from there too.
It was a very good meeting. It's nice to touch space with them. And I'd just like to add on that, the fact that they have a training center for search and rescue.
Oh, yeah.
So residents of Ukraine, men, women, whoever can come there and learn how to go through bomb buildings and without dogs and stuff, and how to tear stuff apart and how to help in the rescue missions. And it's supported through the Edmonton firefighters, Edmonton City Police. The mayor did thank us for the bunker gear that left our area and stuff and headed over there. Vitaly, a very good friend of this council, who works for the Canadian-Ukrainian Congress, was on the call, and he has supported all these initiatives coming out of the northern Alberta to help in that area. So again, it was a good meeting, and we look forward to strengthening our relationships with Valamea and the mayor and council there. So
Yeah, and that's it.
okay, thank you very much. Councillor Lemko.
Best for last. I have a couple items. Oh, right, that's why I said it. I have a couple items, and I'll tag in on the work of the committee for the Vegreville area stands with Ukraine. I got a call last Monday from the Calgary Catholic Immigration Society regarding a resident from Ukraine who had traveled to Calgary, and they placed this gentleman in a community south of us with a job, but things didn't work out, and she had called and asked if we, knowing the history of our community and how well we do, if we would be able to assist this gentleman in transitioning from that other community into Vegreville, and short notice. He had a week to, he lost his job there and had a week to move out of there. So I put it out to the committee, and like they all do, in 2 days they had a furnished apartment for this gentleman, and he was able to arrive on Friday. And he also has a job that starts here right away. And that committee, comprised of volunteers that were set up, were able to do that. And kudos to them. All the work that they do for the Ukrainians is why we are seen in Alberta as the community that did the most to bring Ukrainians and displaced. So kudos to them. I again send a huge thank you to them. The next item is along a resident had contacted me, although they never wrote a letter to council regarding the status of a road. They reached out to me. It's the 59th Avenue between 47th and 49th Street. So right by Vegreville Manor. The crumbling of that road and the state of it, they were concerned that it's just becoming very rough to drive. And it's a major commuter route from the northeast to 50th to go downtown or across 58th and on. So they just asked if we had ever thought of fixing it up or in some state. So I just bring that out as it was brought to me. And an alley in the back, it'll be the alley behind on the south of that. It's pretty rough when you rumble down that alley. So I'm just relaying that from a resident who was concerned. And that's it, Your Worship.
Okay, thank you very much. First of all, let me start by thanking all members of council and CAO Ling who attended the Alberta Munis Conference. I thought there was a lot to take in, and it was a good learning experience and a lot of good networking. CAO Ling and myself met with the ADM for transportation, and we got a couple of items a little clearer than what we knew before, and then CAO Ling met with the grant committee about what we can expect, and hopefully the news that was shared with her, the information, is something that we'll be able to use in budget, what our expectations should be, because not knowing anything about going into a budget cycle would be tough. I've had a conversation this morning with a concerned citizen regarding a corner that's being parked on. People can't see around, and there's no yellow paint on the corner at all, so I will take that to your department, Dale, and we'll get that straightened out. But the biggest thing that I have to deal with right now is a letter that shows up every week at the post office, and it's unsigned. So now the newspaper is asking questions, and I let the reporter know that they can write on anything. We've never really had any problem discussing this in an open forum, but I will just tell you for everybody, this is how the letter goes like. Just to let you know that what the mayor and council let the management and town staff do with tax money. In the last 10 years with surplus equipment and items, they've had a sealed tender sale of items so that the town staff can bid on items. Then some of the staff take the time to go to bigger auctions and make 2 or 3 times more than they paid. Tax dollars they are giving away. Do citizens think this is right? Not signed, of course, and this has been going on for about 4 months. These letters are dropped off and taped in the post office. And the newspaper said that they would never put anything like this in the paper unless somebody was willing to sign it. And obviously this coward, whoever wrote this, and yes, I said coward, is not willing to sign it. We are very aware of what happened, and it's been very standard practice how we decommission old equipment that we have. I think I've been on council 10 years now, and I don't think we've ever had any issues getting rid of some old stuff that was wore out. We have a sealed bid process, they're open, and the highest bidder gets them. We've never had anything in the past that was really worth taking to an auction. Everything we had was wore out. This last auction, or last disbursement, I'll say, things changed. We had a bigger piece, and it was purchased by a town employee. And the town employee did some work on it and did take it to another auction and did make money. We've never tried to hide the fact. We've gone through the process. We feel that very comfortable. There was nothing done. Everybody in this community, outside this community, anybody in the world could send a sealed tender on the piece of equipment. So, whoever you are that keeps writing these letters, I wish you would put your name on it. And I want to thank the newspaper for taking the right action and not publishing this, but I thought we've talked about it many times since this incident happened. We have put into place a different procedure for stuff that may be a little high end compared to what we've always got rid of before, stuff that didn't work. So, again, whoever this person is, please give me a call. I'd love to talk to you on this matter. And that's all I have. Next up, Director Highlights. So we'll start with Director Lefebvre.
Thank you, Your Worship. The, excuse me, the Force Main project with New Edge and the town, we will be signing the agreement now, likely at the end of this week. They are working on procuring materials for the project to determine their start dates. There will be some material landing on site this fall. However, it's very likely that we'll probably see a March 2024 start with the completion of end of September also of 2024. Will be the latest update I have on the Force Main project. We do have a meeting October 5th, so on Thursday this week, a pre-construction meeting. So after that, I'll be able to give you more detailed information, and I will be requesting a schedule, a construction schedule. So I'll have that information and see if they have one for us. For Prosperity Industrial Park, Inline is very close to completing their portion of the site work. If you've gone by, you can see we're very close to wrapping up. There's a couple odds and ends to do. The Excalibur is back now and is starting to work on the site. I talked to them this morning, and they're here until they're finished this project. They are back, and they're going to wrap up this fall and get that project finished up for the off-site, and then also the lift station project that has been just kind of sitting on hold for now until we finish the off-site. What gives us the opportunity now is that now we're able to take product water from Prosperity, now that it's completed, and then drop it into the lift station and start doing some calibration on pumps and levels and flow sensors and things. So we need one to be done to do the next one, kind of thing. So it's really coming together, and we hope to have it wrapped up this fall.
Excellent.
Yep.
And I see that the easement that we had asked one of the neighboring people got cleaned up out there.
It got cleaned up a few weeks ago, yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Any questions? Go ahead. Councillor Lemko.
My question, Director Lefebvre, is regarding the cemetery stabilization, the river stabilization.
Yes.
Is there a projected timeline, or is there, just curious to see how that project?
The project came in just a little over budgeted amount, so we took the tender and clawed back a little bit. Our local parks department will be doing some of the work of removal for us. Between that and a slight reduction in the scope of work, we're back into what the grant amount was. So now we're going to start again. Remember, this project was destined to be done as a fall project. So it is on track. I know it's end of the season, but the work is starting here right shortly.
Okay. Thank you very much. Director Johnston.
Thank you, Your Worship. Since the last legislative meeting on September 19th, our admin team has shifted our focus to budget and starting to update year-end lead sheets where possible. We have submitted another progress claim through ISIP for Prosperity Park, which takes into account costs incurred up to August 31st of 2023 and will provide approximately $158,000 of capital. The vacant utilities position has been filled, and training for both this position and the payroll position are underway. The payroll position is underway with the second payroll batch and is doing quite well with the direction of our finance manager. We have spent significant time updating Questica to include budgets for the upcoming 3 years, and we will begin presentations and council budget meetings tomorrow. And that's all.
That's it?
That's it.
Thank you very much.
I think he's gonna be busy tomorrow.
Yeah. Okay. CAO highlights. This is going to be fun.
Oh, there's not much here. No, we basically working with departments prepping for budget, and then I attended the Alberta Munis Conference with council. There were some very informative sessions. As your worship stated, I attended a grant meeting with Municipal Affairs Department, and our local government funding framework, LGFF, allocations are set to come out in December of this year. But they said we can expect the same as our 2023 MSI granting, if not just a little bit more. So we will go ahead with working our budget on 2023's MSI allocations.
It was nice that they were able to confirm that. The other part, it could be a little more. I think they just threw that in so you'd leave a little happy.
Well, it's the carrot.
I did have a conversation with Mr. McIver about us not having a meeting, and he said, basically, your worship, you're close. If you want a meeting, phone, and we'll set one up. But municipalities are further away or a priority, so if we do need to have a meeting, he's more than willing to make it happen, so. Okay. That being said, we have our first presentation for 2024 budget tomorrow, all-day affair. So, everybody's ready? The departments are all ready? Yeah. We are going to be closed on October the 9th for Thanksgiving, the main office. Okay. Well, that's all that we have for business for council today. We do have 3 closed session items regarding land. So I would like to get a motion to go into closed session.
Okay.
Councillor Warwick makes the motion at 4 o'clock. All those in favor? Carried.